And we should be live with. oh, And we should be live with the second part of the podcast if my computer holds up to its end of the bargain. We probably have a shorter podcast because we talked a lot about the news last time. So we're just gonna try to concentrate
Yep.
on some remaining news that we have, and then talk about the main subject of today.
Yeah, I believe we started talking about, we got through talking about Randy Pitchford's comments, and then
Mm-hmm.
you mentioned that H1Z1 is getting into the Battle Royale game
Well, it
market.
was getting into the battle royale
Oh,
game, but that got delayed and got shifted back to its original developers. I mean, it's weird because H1C1 was one of the games that was an armor. I think it was an armor mod that brought the zombie thing. But people really liked it because they spent more time fighting each other than fighting the zombies.
mm,
And that sort of gave birth to a sort of battle royale kind of thing. It was like it's much preferable to fight each other with other survival games, where most people in survival games started fighting each other instead of fighting, surviving or fighting zombies. And then the battle royale thing took off, and it really took off with PUBG and now Fortnite and, well, everything else, and everybody knows the history of that. So hi, welcome. We're catching up to yesterday's news, and today we are hopefully will be concentrating. There's some news from yesterday to today, so we're gonna talk
yeah.
about that. This one I found very interesting. Sekiro creator would like to make a Rockstar style narrative driven game.
Hmm.
I hope without the microtransactions, but sure.
Or the 100-hour work weeks or something
Yeah.
for the writing team, anyways.
Um.
They let's see, I stumbled across the story that Activision um took down like 17 or no, 14 games from the PlayStation network
Mm-hmm.
because actually they didn't, I don't think well, they're all licensed games.
Mm-hmm.
So one would presume that their license expired, and that kind of reinforces the fact that this whole shift into the digital market only place is not quite perfect yet. Granted, you will, if you already purchased the game, you are still able to download them.
Mm-hmm.
But like, what if I wanted to pick up Deadpool all of a sudden? I remember seeing Deadpool being on sale, just not at a price that I ever thought was worth picking up. But like, well, now my only choice is to try to track down a physical game because that's the only way you can get it now.
Yeah. I was saying this before. I think it would be a cool idea if uh, some publishers at least would have a physical copy on demand, like publishing on demand.
Hmm.
Like, oh, you want a copy of this? Okay, sure. Fork up 10, 15 extra dollars, and we'll send you like 3 Blu-ray discs or 4, or how many there are, with a little manual and a box, and there you go. You have a physical copy. But they won't do that because the reason why they wouldn't do that would be because they want to have as much control over the rights over it as possible. I mean, we talk about how you don't really buy games anymore, and with live services, again, you're not buying a game, you're buying a ticket to ride, right? You're getting a ticket to get to the access to the live service. So I don't see a lot of publishers doing that, but it would be a cool feature nonetheless, and would help a lot when it comes to game preservation. But alas.
Yeah, you just have to kind of rely on, and like, independent manufacturers like limited run games. There's another one that's been trying to make games as well that I don't remember. It's like almost it's they sound similar, like limited run, but I can't recall their name. And Fan Gamer sometimes will release some will, I think, approach companies like that and make release some stuff exclusive to that store. I've also seen Play Asia. Play Asia is another place that also gets like exclusive physical versions of digital games. So it's interesting. That's actually kind of like a little, a small burgeoning market
Mm-hmm.
is physical copies, and they sell out, so people are buying them. And sometimes you'll see like limited run games might have like little grab bags of like some products that they didn't weren't able to sell. But
Mm,
honestly, they, to be honest, I've seen like those games are like, no thanks. They
yeah.
don't. The game doesn't look all that interesting. Granted, even if it's a game that I'm not interested, it may not be very good. I think it still deserves having like a physical media to
Mm,
where it's preserved. Like,
yeah. True enough.
yeah.
So, and it always helps to have the copy, as well. But I think what you're probably gonna see is more special editions, platinum editions, and those are we're gonna charge you $200, and among the feelies is an actual copy of the game,
Hmm.
right? If they can get away with charging not $5 or $10 or $15, but like $200, that's what you're gonna see. And we've seen a lot of issues like that, right? Oh yeah, we're gonna send you a physical copy of the game, you know. And also they also send a physical copy with a little, plastic or cardboard cutter saying, "Oh, this would be the game." Remember, kids, when games came on disc? Well, not anymore.
Nope.
There's also the Halo TV series, VG 24/7, and it's not strictly video games, so they're talking about Halo. May shift days, locations, ethnicity of characters. This is talking about the adaptation of Halo, and how, for example, the fact that Master Chief never takes her helmet off is something they have to work around and stuff like that. I thought it was very interesting, and it's and also the fact that different medium or different media have different requirements.
Yep.
So I talk
Yeah.
a lot about how we shouldn't talk about video games in the same way we talk about movies and television. This is an example that when you take something like a video game and put it in this case television, it's not going to be a one-to-one representation of sorts, right? So again from VG 24/7, Yakuza Kiwami will be released on PC on May 9th. After PC release of Yakuza Kiwami, Sega has provided a release date. It will run for you for $30 on Steam or the original equivalent. So not only are they releasing a remaster, they're releasing a remaster at a lower price point.
Hmm.
And I like that. I thought it wasn't on special sale when I bought it. I found Yakuza Kiwami and said, oh, by the way, Sega games are on sale. So I was like, okay, I guess I'll buy Bayonetta. Bayonetta 2 is not there because it's it was exclusive for the Wii U, and it's a Nintendo exclusive. But I wish it was. I would love to play that game. And Vanquish and some other games. It's like, whoa, just grab them all. So you can see that I think more Japanese games are making the move to PC, and Sega's being very aggressive.
Yeah. Then, actually, I do like that because, well, for one, when games tend to be more expensive on, I've noticed that with when it comes to when they're on Xbox and PlayStation,
Hmm.
that games tend to be about like $5 to $10 more, sometimes even up to $15 more than their digital counterpart. Even if you're buying like a digital version of it on the PlayStation Store or the Xbox or the Microsoft Store, they tend to be about like somewhere from like $5 to $15 difference
Yeah,
versus
usually that's the license. In order
the
for them
Steam. Yeah.
to license them to a console, they charge more. But here's the thing: that most release games, even on Steam or GOG or other places, they will
Yeah.
charge you the same amounts. Like
Yeah.
say $59.99 and $60.
Or maybe even like just $5 less. But like, yeah,
They
40,
don't. They
like, what's
don't.
it, $30? Well,
Yeah,
that's
$30.
actually
Yeah,
really good.
yeah, it's a
I'm
pretty good
like,
price.
so I'm looking at my wish list right now because I know I want like the second Kirigami game for the PlayStation, and it's still like at $30 right now.
Yeah.
That's
So,
$32. It's like,
and not
that's
only
a
that, as a pre-purchase, I'm not really much of a pre-purchase
mm,
person. It comes with will be handed. You include the Clan Creator Bundle as a free incentive. Well, not really. You're paying for it. So you basically, if you pre-order at $30, right, you get the game and previously released DLC, including a Clan Creator leaders and packs, as well as two exclusive weapons: the Kiwami machine gun and the Kiwami demon blade. So they're
that
being
was
very aggressive marketing this.
well. They have their DLC thing is a little weird.
It's just stuff that you add, and it's like weapons and stuff like that. Doesn't really. I mean, the weapons they wore it down anyway, so they don't. Like I'm playing Kiwami right now, or just basically Yakuza have a lot of DLCs just for the cars. Like there's a racing mini game,
Hmm.
and basically it's not an RC. It's like just like a on rails game, right? And it's very weird because you see Kiryu being this grown up playing around with the little kids, like, oh my god, little kids, like, okay. But he likes that, so I guess he's saying he is a kid at heart, I guess.
Oh
um
yeah, they did add like a bunch of like like DLC stuff. It's
yeah.
actually pretty pricey. As I'm looking at on the PlayStation Store.
Hmm.
Oh wow, like oof, it's like $20 for like almost everything. That's like the bundle,
Hmm. Well,
and
I almost always end up buying it, pre-ordering. By pre-ordering, basically I just buy like the day before it's gonna come out,
hmm.
because to make sure I don't want to forget, and it's like, oh, I forgot, and I want to make sure it's there, just in my library. So I guess I am pre-ordering, but I don't pre-order like, oh, it's April, I'm gonna have to pre-order it now. It's like, no, why should I do that? I don't have to, right? Although, considering my computer problems, and how long it probably is gonna take me to finish Yakuza Kiwami, uh, or Yakuza Kiwami 1, I might not buy this in a while. But I'm gonna put it in the back of my head, a mental note in the back of my head to see what I'm having a lot of fun playing Kiwami, all things considered. So hopefully it will be worth it. I haven't played Zero yet. I decided to start at the actual beginning of the game, as opposed to go back to Zero. But maybe I'll play that too. In other news, Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order to be unveiled on Saturday. First teaser image revealed. So this is EA's. I believe this is actually just an image. Lightsaber with a tagline, "Don't stand out."
Hmm.
That's according to VGA 24/7. That's likely referring to game hero who has escaped Padawan. Monsieur Cass likely hiding from Palpatine's forces. A Jedi are being hunted. So this is between the Clone Wars and the original trilogy, which is
Hmm.
one of the things about. This is the thing about Disney. They basically said, you know what? Luke Skywalker wasn't the last of the Jedi. They didn't all die out. It's just hiding. Just like Luke Skywalker was a very special Jedi because he was of the Skywalker, descendancy, and he was fated to, I don't know, kill Darth Vader and all that. But as a Jedi, he wasn't that special, apparently. So, yeah, not the first character that has survived between the wars and all that. Especially if you watch Star Wars Rebels. So I think that's I don't know. It's a Star Wars game. I'll
Yeah,
probably give it a look, but it's also EA, so mm,
yeah. I've never been really super into Star Wars. It's an all right franchise, but I'm not like always super excited about a game or anything. I honestly think the last game I've ever played of Star Wars is that the Force Unleashed, the
hmm
one where, yeah, like some guy escapes with like his son, some Jedi, and Darth Vader ends up hunting him down,
hmm
and it ends up killing Dad and taking the kid as a super secret apprentice.
hmm because there's gonna only be two, I suppose. Which I never liked that rule, but there you go.
Me too. I'm hungry. What are you making?
Food.
But
Yes.
I've been a Star Wars fan for the longest of time, and playing a lot of Star Wars games. I think one of the best Star Wars games I ever played was the original X-wing, back in the day. So I mean, really liked it. It had you flying an X-wing and shooting up things, so that was great. I have the GOG version somewhere, but uh, I don't know. I probably won't see me. And apparently somebody's excited too about playing Star Wars X-wing.
Yep, Chiquita agrees.
Yeah. So, what we were supposed to do yesterday, but we never got to, and why we are having this second part of the podcast, if you're joining us, you probably see two of them on YouTube. One cuts abruptly, and then the other one, continues. Part one, part two is we're going to be talking about another Jason Schreier article called "The Past and Present of Dragon Age 4." This one is not as extensive as the one on Andromeda Anthem. However, I think it shows where if BioWare has a future, it might be pointing to. Now,
Hmm.
before we start, a lot of people have talked about how, and there's been a lot of rumors that, you know, Dragon Age 4 will be turned into a new Anthem. And
Hmm.
there's, well, let's start with the opening paragraph to get an idea where we are. This is quoting from this article, and I put the link on the chat so you guys can see it. Um, in December 2019, developer BioWare teased the next Dragon Age game, hinting at a mysterious future for the popular fantasy series, one that is enticing but seems very far, far away. Why more than 4 years after Dragon Age Inquisition is Dragon Age 4 still so early in development? The answer is complicated and reflective of BioWare's turbulence over the past decade. Uh, Now, the first thing is that Dragon Age 4 was rebooted in October 2010, so 2 years ago, and that the current version was now developed by our office in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. So it's being in main BioWare.
Hmm.
Uh,
So this is already a big red flag because we saw this with Andromeda and we saw this with Anthem. Is that it's been 4 years since the last game, and presumably they've been working on Dragon Age 4 in some form, whether it's just somebody just jotting down notes. And it's been, yeah, like this is exactly the same thing that happened to those other two games. It's like they were in development for 5, 6, almost 7 years, and they only got actually started working on the framework for the game like 2 years, 1.5 years before the game launched. Like, so that's already like a big red flag to me, and it's concerning.
and there's more. According to the article, one of the reasons why Mike Laidlaw, who is one of the chief designers behind Dragon Age Inquisition, left the studio was because it was the tensions between EA's financial goals and what BioWare fans want, particularly EA's push for live services. And as a note on the article, EA did not return a request for comment, just that they didn't do so in Anthem. And
So
unlike Anthem, they haven't sent a response afterwards to this article. So
yeah, and so this kind of goes in. I believe the previous article mentioned that BioWare or EA doesn't actually mandate anything in terms of like, oh, you have to put live services elements into your game or you have to have multiplayer. However, it's sort of like them just standing there. It's like you don't have to do anything, and then just smiling there and just standing there as you work. You don't have to put the live service in there. We're not telling you to put it in there. We're also, but again, they're also not telling them to put it in there. It's all like, no, you could. I haven't seen anybody mention that. EA has come out and said like, hey, you guys are like an RPG thing, and we don't think live services would go really well with it. And you know what? Don't worry about it. Like, don't put it in there. We feel like it drags the game down. Don't bother.
mm-hmm.
Nope, you don't see EA saying that. So I feel like it's even if EA is not telling them, they are feeling that pressure to put it in there. They are feeling the pressure to, I guess, quote unquote, evolve
Mm-hmm.
their development with RPGs to be in the quote unquote market because everyone else is doing it, and they don't want to get closed down like, say, Visceral Games, who was working on a single player game with no live action or live service monetization in any kind of way, at least not in that part of their development.
Mm-hmm.
So that's I can see why he left.
Yeah, I mean, but one of the things it says about the Frostbite engine, you talked about Frostbite, and so have I. And one of the concerns about forcing the studio to use the Frostbite engine is that it's so difficult to work with they have a central staff of people to help, right?
Mm-hmm.
But and this was mentioned, it's mentioned in this article, it's also mentioned in the Anthem article, that BioWare always got the short, short stuff of
The short end of the
the
stick
stick. Yeah, that's a
when it comes to getting help from those resources.
and the reason why is because single player RPGs are not seen as profitable by EA as others. So it's like, well, if you really want to be successful, we are only going to get behind projects that really align with our internal politics and our public
Mm-hmm.
positions. We're not going to say that we're not going to help you, even though you're a wholly owned subsidiary of, division of our company. You're saying that we only have so many millions and or billions of dollars to throw around, and so much time and effort, and if we could give a couple of calls to the service center saying that, yeah, you get priority to BioWare, but not really, because we're very busy here in Seattle. So I don't know, maybe if you give us something that we might push for that, right? It's sort of that scummy internal, politics. And I said this before, that this is basic corporate structure, right? When you get bought out by a larger company, one of the things that happens, beside people getting laid off or whatever, and that also is part of the process, is that the larger company at some point will impose its internal views and policies on all its divisions so that they mesh together, you know. And so if EA is pushing publicly for live services, there's also a message for everyone else saying, where's your live service, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because if you don't fit with that corporate policy and that corporate vision, then you're the outsider, and that's going to bring you trouble. Or it's going to feel like trouble, even if there's no outward
And
uh, signs of it.
and we've seen this with Blizzard last year, except
Mm-hmm.
that on a more explicit front, because now Activision is finally like being very proactive and very open about their restructuring within Blizzard. But we've seen hints of that when it comes to some of Blizzard's products, especially where you got the auction store, and then of course the announcement of uh of Diablo, was it Infinite, Inferno,
Mm-hmm.
whatever it was called, the mobile game that was everyone booed at. Um, Granted, with that, I'm sort of willing to give the developers a benefit of the doubt when it comes to, like, yeah, you know what, we think mobile gaming might be a more viable thing,
Mm-hmm.
because when they kind of look at themselves, like, we have to work like 50-hour days, and we don't have time to like sit down and even play our own games. Like, we couldn't play Diablo 3 because we're busy making Diablo 3.
Mm-hmm.
So I can sort of, it's kind of a sick way, I can sort of see their logic, because it's like, we make video games for a living, but because we make video games for a living, we don't actually have time to play video games at all. So
Yeah.
it's like, for fun, and we don't have time to dedicate hundreds and hundreds of hours into a game because we're so busy making video games. So we see why mobile might be a good thing. So we want to make a mobile game so that we can play our own games,
Yeah.
kind of. But of course, the other things around that too was like sort of their code developers and stuff, and it's not looking like a very good game. And it's being looked like it's right for my microtransactions and stuff.
Yeah.
So that's the part where that kind of argument falls apart.
Yeah. And one of the things to know about, again, Frostbite is that before the cancellation of 2017, this is according to the article, they were according to getting things right. They had the
Mm-hmm.
tools, which means that probably they already had made the modifications to, or were comfortable with the modifications that they'd done to Frostbite to make a single player RPG work, at least minimally work, and then built on that instead of just going back to the wheel and remaking everything. They had a feasible scope, and there's mention also that this game would be more like a Dragon Age 2 situation where they will make it smaller, right?
Mm-hmm.
More
And
focused, which is not
honestly,
bad. It's not necessarily
yeah.
bad. So I'm not. I know when I say Dragon Age 2, people are like, "Oh, he's gonna dump on this." Not necessarily. Although there's an example later on the article which I want to point out too, and their team was excited, but and they were quote unquote committed to avoiding the mistakes they made on Dragon Age Inquisition. Right. So internally, they had admitting that they made mistakes and they were not going to repeat them. Such as, for example, the fact that it was designed to be chipped onto 5 platforms: PC, PS4, PS3, Xbox One, Xbox 360. And we said this many times before. I played the 360 version of the game.
It was garbage.
I mean, I liked the game enough that I played it multiple times.
Yeah,
but graphically, it was horrible.
It was functional.
Yeah,
it worked. That's pretty much all you can really say. But wow, like graphics were, you might as well have just kind of got the script of Dragon Age and take some Barbie dolls and just kind of pretend that you're playing with them.
At least for the cutscenes, yeah. Although the game, and that happens in the cutscenes. Ironically, in the regular game, when you're running around, is not. I mean, it looks better in PC and looks better in the hardware, but it doesn't look like, oh my god, it's completely different. It's when you go to the cutscenes, and that I think shows again the problems with Frostbite. And the Frostbite was designed not only not for this kind of game, but also was designed for what then was the later generation of hardware. It wasn't really made retroactive, which is, to be honest, the fact that they were able to make a game retroactively enough, on that aging hardware, shows a lot about the skill and, one could argue, the BioWare magic that they had to really push in order to make it available. And I think also they did that. Well, one of the reasons they did that was because the other Dragon Age had been released on the 360 and the PS3, so they wanted continuity with those players. But also because a lot of companies, including EA, were hedging their bets because they were not really sure if the new hardware was going to be successful. So
it was in that transitional period when the consoles just released, and of course, but even then they didn't even have like a direct import feature for your like saves. Like you had to connect, you had to log on to plug the other games in there, pop them in, connect to the EA servers to have that like upload your save data, verify it go on your computer, verify it on the Dragon Age Tapestry website, make sure that all your story plot elements are what you wanted, and then save it up, tell it that this is the one that you want to upload, have it hop back onto Inquisition and download it, and then start a new game. That's all you had to do. Granted, if you've been playing it for years, all that safe data is actually already up there. But yeah, something that so with like I was gonna bring up something and I
sorry, I interrupted you. Well, following up, as I said, we're going to talk about Dragon Age 2. What is this? I'm going to quote the paragraph because it's in full, because I think it's interesting to dissect it. Starting with, one of the biggest problems with the chilly reception of Dragon Age 2, a narrow, often repetitive game made in just 14 months. Left the developers feeling skittish and insecure. As creative director Mike Laidlaw told me in an interview for the book a few years ago, as a book he mentions earlier in the article, you should check it out. This insecurity led him and his fellow directors second guess a lot of decisions. You're following a negative experience, he said. You're not quite sure where and how to get it back, and on top of that, you're introducing all this new gameplay that leads to an inherent insecurity. Now, my first commentary on that is, and I felt that during like the opening of Inquisition has a lot of that insecurity sort of baked in, because they keep referring back to Dragon Age 2, and it's all known to them. I felt that the game really takes off when they go, okay, fine, we dealt with Dragon Age 2, we tied all those narrative, we tied those loose ends. Let's get going.
But that's also the argument I've always felt with when it comes to Inquisition, that I felt like it was way too hasty to want to wash its hands of Dragon Age 2 instead of owning it. It's like, nope, I washed my hands of this Dragon Age 2. Yeah, okay, we've dealt with it. Let's just push it away and never speak of it again. It's like, no, guys, you made it. Own it. Live up to it. It's like you started the Mage Rebellion Wars. It's all you see is just like some in the hinterlands, just like them, mages fighting Templars and people getting caught in the middle, and then afterwards you pick a side and it's over, I guess. And then it's like, and then of course Hawk appears, and it really, really feels like you get a choice, but I don't understand why they made it a choice, because it really feels like you're supposed to kill Hawk, or at least choose Hawk to stay behind in the Fade and fight the giant spider demon of fear. Because
Dragon
it's
Age Inquisition Game of the Year award. Yes. Okay.
because especially when you like when you follow up with Varric, like if you choose your warden, whoever your warden happens to be, like Varric will talk like very solemnly about the warden, and like you didn't know this person, and why is Hawk's theme playing while you're talking about this warden? It's like you want, like, Bioware, you wanted me to pick Hawk to just give Hawk a valiant death and just wash our hands of it. Which, again, I'm not sure why they made it a choice. I guess just because they maybe knew they would upset fans.
Yes, definitely.
But again, then again, they just kind of washed their hands of that choice anyway. Says, oh yeah, they went to YSEP and never heard from them again.
Mm-hmm.
But what I remember, my point was Frostbite. It was back to Frostbite. Then I was always baffled when it came to when we played Andromeda, and then of course the issues with Anthem is like you guys. I remember hearing that you talked a lot about how you had to really pretty much start from scratch with Frostbite and rebuild everything and do everything when it came to making Dragon Age Inquisition. So why didn't you take all that stuff that you learned and apply it to Andromeda and apply it to, I would have thought that you already had the framework and you just had to tweak some things and then refit it to Andromeda, refit it to Anthem. And it's like, no, apparently I believe, was it with Andromeda, they didn't want to use the framework for Dragon Age Inquisition because they didn't want it to feel like Dragon Age in space. And then of course with Anthem, they couldn't do that because it was an online game and they need the framework for the online game. And then it's disappointing to hear that they basically they have the framework for a Dragon Age game in Frostbite, and then they're just going to throw that away and not make the next Dragon Age game with it. Even though I think either way, even if they did want to use that, maybe they would be better off to just going back to like Unreal or something. But they're just going to use the Anthem code because they want to have that online service crap instead of just making an forgettable multiplayer aspect to the game that's literally tacked on, and I think most people forget that it's even there.
With literal loot crates coming from the ceiling and slamming down and opening.
Yeah,
that's a thing in Dragon Age Inquisition, but most people don't see it, so they don't.
Yeah, no. The 4 years this game has been out, I've never even clicked on the multiplayer option. I don't even know what the menu of the multiplayer for Dragon Age Inquisition looks like. I've never touched it.
Yeah, I think I briefly played Mass Effect 3 multiplayer, and that was it. I think
I did. I mean, for that one made a little more sense, but it was okay.
Yeah.
But we were saying you were on the topic of Dragon Age 2.
Yeah, one of the things is that they say basically, Dragon Inquisition, after Dragon Inquisition, Mark Dara, who was head of the staff, told us that, and Laylaw and Mark Dara, who was executive producer, said, we're going to do things different and we're going to learn from mistakes. But I don't see that mentioning about Dragon Age 2. I mean, I get the fact that you made a game, and that's again another thing, 14 months, very compressed. That definitely has to feel like EA was stepping in and saying, we need another game, just a placeholder, just give us something with the name Dragon Age. We don't care, we just want the money, right? And they put out the game, and then after Inquisition, they went like, we were afraid, we were tired, this is the things we need to do. That should have been done immediately after Dragon Age 2. And from this article, this is just from the article, folks, I get the sense that they didn't do that. Had they done that, I think Inquisition would have felt better, because it's like, okay, we know what we did wrong here. But I think ultimately they would have gone like, the reason is that the whole thing was just rushed, and because if I were to defend Dragon Age 2 has a lot of cool ideas, right? And there's a lot of stuff in Dragon Age 2 that could have been good if it was given a chance. Like it had, like if the game had focus. Like okay, this is the bad guy, right? The bad guys are gonna be the Kunari, and we're gonna do everything around the Kunari, and we're gonna throw some. Or it's gonna be about the Mage Rebellion, right?
Yeah.
Or it's gonna be about Hawk's rise to power, right? If they
It-
focus on those things and made, I don't know, maybe like a criminal fantasy sandbox in Kirkwall, something like that, that would have been great. But instead, it was like, oh, we're gonna throw in this and this and this and that, and Hawkeye's gonna go here and try to do something,
yeah, it's like he's gonna solve everybody's problems, and
but he
just
doesn't.
throw
But they
all those
don't.
three ideas.
Yeah.
Let's throw all those three ideas and just like let's put it all in a game and just break it up into chapters.
Yeah, and he rarely actually solves anything. That's one of the most frustrating thing about Dragon Age 2. Is like, if he solves something, it's almost by mistake. You're just like, well,
Yeah, it's like,
I
oh,
guess I gotta kill you because
I'm
I'm
poor.
here. Yeah, so
I'm poor. Let's go to this exposition. Maybe we'll get some money. Oh, we managed to find a vault full of gold and problem solved, kind of. But oh no, something happens to my last living sibling, and then it's like years later. Oh yeah, those pesky Kunari are still here. What should we do about them? We should probably make sure that tensions don't blow over in the city. Whoops, they did. Oh, but that's okay. We chased them off, kind of, and now you're the hero. But then, of course, what about the mages and the Templars? We got to find a way to kind of resolve their issues and make sure they don't kill each other. Whoops, that accidentally happened. Now what do we do? I don't know. Bye. Choose a side and then literally leave.
yeah. And also as a almost this particular paragraph seems almost like an answer to what happened in Anthem, but also Inquisition. That according to the project leads basically set out three goals, right? They said one, laying down a clear vision as early as possible instead of meandering and wasting time, like they did with Anthem and they did with to a lesser degree with Andromeda. Two, maintaining a regular onboarding documents and procedures so new team members can get up to speed fast.
Yeah,
And
that's
three,
actually pretty.
and decision making mentality that where we acknowledge that making the second best choice was far far better than not deciding and letting ambiguity stick around while people waited for a decision. I would again think that all that should have been there from the very beginning.
Yeah.
I mean, this to me, and again, I'm talking from the outside, seems like very basic sort of management stuff, right? That's what's expected. I mean, I know a lot of companies don't do that, but when you have a multi-million-dollar, project, and also the way these things are described, like the Dragon Age team is sort of like a pirate ship that goes and they stop everywhere, make sure they get something done. Versus, I don't know how much the Mass Effect team. The fact that you have these teams.
They said they at least with like from the original trilogy, they said that like Casey Hudson was like Captain Kirk, and they knew their destination and they went straight for it. Essentially,
that it seems to me like even within Edmonton, even though from time to time they put people one person, one team, another, and they would call, they had the Dragon team, finishing team come in and help with Anthem and whatnot. There wasn't really a lot of talking between them or lessons learned. It's like, oh, you guys made these mistakes in Mass Effect in Dragon Age 2. Okay, let's avoid that in Mass Effect, or we did this in Andromeda. Okay, let's not do that in Anthem, right? So,
yeah, and honestly, I kind of thought in a way they might have learned their lessons with when it came to Dragon Age 2, Mass Effect 2, and Mass Effect 3, in terms of having shorter development or having shorter development cycles. Are like, ooh, maybe this isn't working. Maybe we should increase it, because after the backlash, when it came to the ending situation, the ending controversy, they did say like, oh, you know what, we're going to extend our development cycle, like give Dragon Age 3 one more year. But it seems that it didn't really have anything to do with the ending or like the writing or anything. It had more to do with like Frostbite and just how crappy everything is and all the turmoil that's been going on in BioWare. But yeah, in terms of like all the stuff that they laid out, better late than never, but they were learning their lesson. at that time. But then it's all like, uh-oh, Anthem's on fire. Everyone grab a hose.
Yeah. Uh, After after the smoldering embers of Andromeda, right? It's like, oh, oops, sorry.
Uh-oh.
Multiple things fail at the same time. Here I am, backing in the chair. It's not one thing; it's the other. Well, okay, but the thing is that we see what happened with not Inquisition, but Andromeda and Anthem. It's like, oh, we had 5 years, we had 7 years. I'm like, again, it goes back to the question: is not so much it's not. It's hard enough to working with something like Frostbite, which is a bad tool to begin with for this stuff. It's not great. Okay, we got it. But even with the tools that they have, and going back to these points, is like, how do you use them? How do you manage your time and your effort and your energy? Seems to be the critical point here. Because, oh, we're going to do procedural generated stuff for Andromeda. Oh, it's not working. Okay, we're going to scrap everything. No, it's just like, whatever, we're just going to start new, and it's like 2 years down the drain. Oh, we don't know if we're going to put, rocket mechanics on our pack suits. Oh, well, VP of sales came down and said that he loves the rocket pack. So in the last 18 months, we're going to have to retool everything and do it, right? With 5 years, 7 years. It's mismanagement. I mean, time and time again in these articles, you see mismanagement. And when they were trying to get it right, they rebooted it.
Yeah, so based on what just the ideas of what they had with whatever it's called, it's not Morrison, Joplin.
Mm-hmm.
So Joplin is the code name for the original Dragon Age 4 that got canceled.
Mm-hmm.
I like it. I honestly, that's what it almost feels like that's what Dragon Age 2 wanted to be in terms of small scale. And especially, I like the idea that, oh yeah, let's not repeat the hinterlands. Like, nobody left the hinterlands because there's so much stupid side quests and minutia to do there that everyone thought they were supposed to complete it first before they go on anywhere else. I fell into that same trap. I'm like, I'm going to go everywhere and try to finish up everything, not realizing that like certain parts of the map had different scaling in terms of enemy levels. So I kept getting my ass kicked, and I kept like, oh, nope, I'm going to keep pushing forward and trying to beat them. I'm not going to let them beat me, because I should probably finish this area first, because it's the first area.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of like, why would I want to come back here at any point of the game later on? So it seems like they were learning all these issues, and of course they scrapped it, and they're going to move on to creating live services into Dragon Age games.
And let's talk a little bit about the type of things that they want to do. I mean, some of them look like they would have been hard to pull off, right? And eventually they would have caught off. But early development, for example, they were going to go to Winter. They're described as a wizard rule country with a lot of slavery, but slavery doesn't get mentioned in the article. And they were to be spies, basically rogues and some others. There was an emphasis on repeat play. One they have said, noting that they wanted to make areas that change over time, and missions that branch out in interesting ways based on your decisions, to the point where you could get non-starter game overs if you follow certain paths. Like, that's what I think. What I would have wanted in a sort of not sandboxy, but open world city based adventure, right? If they go to the capital of Dragon Age of the Tevinter Imperium, because one of the things I didn't like about Dragon Age 2 was that once you sort of explore the city and all the locations, that was it. It was the same cave, it was the same mansion, it was the same palace. Once you unlocked the map, the only difference was that maybe there was an area that you couldn't go here, or you would enter from one or the other hole. This entrance here in the north, or you're gonna move you around. It's like playing Roll20, and the GM only has like 5 maps, and they just position the players when they start different places.
That's exactly why, and we can attribute that to the 14 development, the 14-month development cycle.
Yeah. It will be centered on heist. So again, that idea of maybe going from GTA 5. The developers talk about building systemic narrative mechanics, allowing the player to perform actions like persuading or extorting guards without the writers having to handcraft every scene. Okay, but that reminds me a little bit of Anthem and how they they use software to try to do the facial animations and didn't work right. But hey, if very ambitious, and it basically says it was all very ambitious and very early, and will have no doubt changed drastically on Joplin entered. I don't have a lot of drop trains. And but remember, he said they were thrilled about the possibility. So I mean, early on, right? That's where you get all the ideas. And if you
Mhm.
have somebody who's focused, like, does it work? Does this work? Yes. No. Okay. Keep working on that. Does it
I
work? Yeah. If
especially
it doesn't work, kick it out. Because most of the time is once you get out of pre-production, it's all about hammering what you can make work and work with that. So
Mhm.
I mean, having early crazy ideas that never come to fruition, I don't have no problem with that. Might as well just air them and try to see if they work, but don't spend like 3 years trying to just make everything procedurally generated and don't go anywhere, right? And what happened, of course, was Joplin was
Yeah.
put on hold because Mass Effect Andromeda needed as many hands as possible during its final months of development. And they were called, like I mentioned before, the Dragon Age finaling team. Is that how you pronounce that?
Yeah, the
Yeah.
finaling.
Yeah.
Yeah, I looked at that for a while. I'm like, how do you say that?
Yeah.
Finaling?
Yeah. Uh,
Yeah, I kept thinking, it's like, shouldn't it be finalizing team?
hmm I don't know. Canadian Senate. Uh, one of the things, and we go back to the multiplayer here. One of the things that wasn't discussed with Joplin as a multiplayer, which a few people who worked on the project realized the project wouldn't why the project couldn't last. While BioWare publisher and parent company 20 Arts tends to give its studios a fair amount of autonomy, they're still mandated to follow. There are still mandates to follow. By 2017, he had been being secret about his desire to make all major products to games as service, live service, but still finds games that can be played and monetized for months and years after the release. Traditional Dragon Age games did not fit into that category. Acquisition had multiplayer mode, but something that blah blah blah. So how do you make a game about a heist in a fantasy setting, a live service? Ooh, yeah,
Oh, heist packs and
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 special abilities
yeah,
and
character packs.
and whatnot, and making your characters as generic as possible so that you can just slap whatever on them, which takes. Yeah, I can see a lot of. One of the questions, and I think this is very much a rhetorical question, was, and again, quoted from the article, high ranking BioWare staff openly wondered, did EA executives really care about narrative?
Mm-hmm.
Did they really care about RPGs? Those questions were always lingering and still to today. I think the answer to that is no and no.
No.
Because they care about money and money. And when in doubt, more money. So if the RPGs give them money, as much money as other games, they will go for it. If not, they don't care. And again, another game was in trouble. This time was Anthem. Casey Hudson came back to rescue Anthem, and Joplin was canceled.
Does it say specifically because there wasn't any live service? They just kind of said they shifted it, so they temporarily shifted everyone to Andromeda.
Mm-hmm.
That got shipped out, so they went back to Joplin, and then of course the other fire started called Anthem, so they shipped them over there, and then they just kind of decided to cancel it.
But I think the reason why the emphasis was there, again, EA doesn't automatically say you have to do this, but the pressure is there, is that think about Andromeda and think about what happened to Andromeda. Andromeda, their single player support was canceled. There's still the multiplayer.
Yeah.
And Andromeda, the combat mechanics of Andromeda, essentially are the multiplayer combat mechanics slapped into the single player.
Yeah, even
Which
though
one
I think I heard that the multiplayer in Andromeda is worse than the one in Mass Effect 3. Mass Effect 3 is like a superior multiplayer experience. I'm not sure about now though. Nowadays,
I don't know if anybody's playing it, but Andromeda has in single player and multiplayer, it has microtransactions, right?
mm-hmm.
Something
and actually
that
they do try to entice you into playing the multiplayer by because I think you get like reward packs and stuff into the main game to
Hmm.
for crafting and stuff, so you can craft do your research points and stuff to unlock.
If I remember correctly, there was a thing about unlocking things about planets and stuff like that. That it said, well, you can. It's about sending teams, right?
Yeah,
You could
you
send a
send off.
team, and the team works in the background, kind of like in Dragon Age Inquisition, where no, they didn't want to make Andromeda like Inquisition, but they eventually did anyway.
Yeah, the table, the war
Yeah,
table.
and this is in the ship, and the team goes away. But you're given a choice, like, well, you can do multiplayer, in which case you act out like the team doing the mission by having a shootout in one of the many maps that is already existent, defeat the enemies in the map, and you get the reward in a loot box situation. Or when you're in multiplayer, it's like, oh, by the way, you can just pay us money to just generate the loot boxes so that you can get the stuff uh, quicker. So it's a sort of a it's a down the rabbit hole kind of situation.
Hmm.
It's still there, and of course Andromeda was designed to be once they said it was going to be a live service, it's monetized from the very beginning for cosmetics and the like. So, and I've seen all the problems about drops not happening as frequently, and that was supposedly a bug, but it was a good bug because people liked that, and it being very grindy, and etc. 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 So I think one of the reasons why, because these teams didn't get shipped to support Battlefield or something like
Hmm.
that, they got shipped to support then the products that were more aligned with EA's vision.
Well, and again, in the previous article, they shifted people from Anthem into FIFA once FIFA, or actually, yeah, it was people from Anthem that had previously worked on Frostbite in Dragon Age Inquisition to FIFA once FIFA shifted to Frostbite because
Hmm.
that's their moneymaker. Uh, so I
And
guess now does that bring us to like present day
mhm.
BioWare?
So Joplin dropped out, and we have Morrison, which is the new name for the new version,
Uh,
and built on Anthem's tools and code base. That's main. One of the things that I said again, EA's, they don't say explicitly, but this is one of the ways said. One promise from management, and this Bioware's management, not necessarily EA's, according to a developer, was that in EA's balance sheet, they'd be starting from scratch and not burdened with the 2 years of money that Joplin already spent.
Yeah, I was gonna bring that up. It's like that's all you guys see. It's like technically it's still your next Dragon Age game just because you say that you canceled that and then you relaunched it and make something new. Who's to say that you're not gonna borrow ideas from your previous work? So this is like a financial move thing that's
Hmm.
like we're gonna cut our losses with this game and start over so that we have like this fresh list and we don't count like the previous 2 years of wasted time now as part of that game so that when this game finally releases however long it takes it however much money it makes
Hmm.
it's not or it costs to produce, it doesn't count with like the profits and stuff.
An
I
accounting trick,
guess,
basically. That's what it is.
yeah, it's accounting, like it's accounting gymnastics, I guess.
Yeah. But also brings us to another bugbear we talked about a lot in the podcast, and that is the cost of making games. Like, oh, making games is going rising up and it's more expensive. Like, well, if you used to make games in I used to say 3 years, now you're in 5 years, now you're going to 7 years to make a game, and you have to scrap 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of those years, but you spent the money already on top of everything else you're gonna do. That's not really cost of making the game. That's just wasted money and effort by mismanagement that you somehow have to make up. And then when the game comes out and it's not as successful as expected, it gets canceled or the support gets canceled. And then fears about your company closing its door, your parent company closing your doors, or rebranding you, or disbanding you come into effect because, well, you wasted a lot of money. It wasn't that you were working for 7 years, and not to slack on the people who actually did the work. If you're working, you're working. You go to office, you
Mhm.
do the job. Spend 50, 60 hours a week, working or whatever. Hey, you're doing your assigned job. This is more about management. This is about the corporate culture, both in EA and BioWare and across the industry. Don't come at me as a consumer saying, well, making games have gone very expensive. And it's like, yeah, but by the way, you're exploiting your employees and taking their heart because of lack of leadership and resource management or poor resource management. You're wasting literally years of development and stuff that never.
Wasting years of their lives,
Yeah.
too.
And then you're also going to probably fire all of them after you're done with them and you spit them out. So, rising cost of development? Maybe, but this is a huge problem. I bet you could save up a couple of $1 million, maybe 10, 20, $30 million, depending. Let's say you spend $1 million per month. Well, that's just throwing a number out there. So if you throw out 2 months, it's $24 million. You can say it's half. You can say it's double. Let's say it's even $100,000 a month, roughly. That's what, $2.4 million you could have saved, if you're so worried about how expensive games are gotten to make. Every dollar, every cent counts, right? And of course, another aspect is that they're losing the people that made. We talk about this for a long time. BioWare has been losing a lot of the people that made BioWare, including its presidents after Mass Effect 3 ending debacle. So.
Yeah, I remember hearing that their main complaint was like, oh, entitlement and stuff, or they necessarily, but I think other people were projecting that, oh, they left because of player entitlement over the Mass Effect 3 ending. It kind of makes me wonder now. No, they saw the writing on the wall really early, and they're like, we're bailing.
Yeah.
And I believe they're not even in the gaming industry anymore. They're making beer now.
Yeah.
I believe.
I mean, they have their money, and maybe had some, the public pressure certainly would have, pushed them in that direction, but that wasn't the only factor. One of the things it says later on is, at the Game Awards in 2018, BioWare teased Morrison in a vague trailer, the Solus trailer, hinting at return of the enemy villain Solus, and promising, that's a spoiler right there, for Dragon Age Inquisition, and promising in a block with a team full of vets. And that's very interesting wording, because they don't tell you who the vets are. Oh, people who are we gather our strongest team, yet an adventuring force on the most epic quest ever, wrote Goldman. Yeah. Okay, who are these vets? Rumored by Cycles, the past year has been the Morrison is Anthem with dragons, an arc label conveyed to me by several people. But a current BioWare employee has waved off the description. The idea was that Anthem would be an online game. Dragon Age Massive War, their experiment with online portions. That's not what they find them as franchises. I don't think they'll see us completely change those franchises. Well, if your tool set is the tool set based on a multiplayer online live service type game, and again, this got mentioned before in Anthem, they're thinking more Diablo 3.
There we go again with the let's make our games more like Diablo 3 and have drop in, drop out characters. Which, honestly, that I don't think that mechanic is terrible necessarily. It's like you can have people take control of like your other 3 companions or something, one of them, and you guys can switch between them or something. Although it might lock you into just playing your player character and having someone else, you'd have to like assign them a character.
Probably. I mean, I like the idea of co-op, especially drop in, drop out co-op. And in a game like Dragon Age or Mass Effect, where people make different choices, like, oh, in my game, this character lived. In Chapel 1's game, they're dead. And so if Chapel 1's like, oh, I'm going to play this area, I'm doing the stream on YouTube, let's go over there. It's like, we jump in, and it's like, oh, why is that guy alive? I killed him. Like, no, yeah, but I talked to him, and I liked him, and whatever, and we have this discussion where we're shooting bolts and arrows or guns or whatever, and we go or in a heist or whatever. That's a good idea, but again, implementation can be pretty hard. Again, the question is, and now it seems that it's trapped. The rest of the article basically talks about what could Morrison really be. Is it a live service, but it's with single player strong content? Is what is it, and what can you do?
Yeah.
And I think it's summarized by saying the team in Dragon Age, have a lot of unanswered questions. Plus, I know it's going to change like 5 times in the next 2 years.
So they're already anticipating it's going to be the same thing. Nothing's changed.
Hmm.
It's going to be the BioWare magic all over again,
Yeah.
which is not a good sign. Um, and of course, this goes back. So, are they going to borrow any ideas from their previous scrapped version of Dragon Age 4? Are they going to start fresh and try to make it more, I guess, make a narrative that's more microtransaction on uh, live service games friendly? Um, so, the thing is, of course, depression and anxiety is running rampant over there, and of course, while they publicly say that, um, oh yeah, like we don't like articles talking about this because they're bringing the industry down, and how dare they talk badly about us. And
Hmm.
but internally, Casey Hudson emailed her once like, hey, we should talk about all these problems that are in the article because they are actual problems and they are real and we need to address them. So that's a good start, kind of, even if they don't want to publicly say
Yeah,
anything.
again, being Bioware means never to say I'm sorry, at least
Yep.
publicly. But our comrade Jim, Jim Sterling, Jim Quisition, and Jim Sterling YouTube channel has warned us that the quote unquote email talks about an all hands on deck meeting, which I've been in corporate situations where literally is somebody from management goes to a gangplank and talks down to the pros, right? Talks out to people. We heard your complaints, and we are going to change this. I promise you.
Yeah,
Have a
they're gonna
good
use
day, and just walk
they're
off.
gonna
And
use buzzwords. Yeah, they're gonna have a chart and buzzwords about how they can create, harmonious synergies, buzzwords like that. And that's like going to a sexual harassment class, like, oh, someone sexually harassed another person, let's just send them to the sexual harassment class and then be done with it. It's like, no, there's more steps to that. And I mean, to be honest, speaking as a manager, it really is hard, no matter how good your intentions are and how big the problem, how big or small the problem is. It can be hard to implement change overnight, and
mm-hmm.
it's things like this do take time, like, especially if you're trying to change like a cultural mentality when it comes to building video games. But you have to try, like, you have to, at some point you have to set your foot down, and we're like, nope, we're not going to fall back into the rabbit hole, these habits, because that's what we know best, and we find it easier to stick with working with these horrible practices, even as unproductive as they are, rather than the hard part of changing things and hoping that it might make things easier later on.
And I think we can wrap it up with the article's final paragraph. And again, worth reading. I invite everybody to read it,
Mm-hmm.
the complete article. We posted the link. We might post it again. We'll have to see. I'm quoting here. We'll have to see how the next few months and years proceed. If there's one wish among people concerned related to Bioware, besides, and in quotations, get rid of Frostbite, is that Morrison will follow Joplin's lead and not just become a great game, but an example of probably leaders are trying to do production right. In other words, like you just said, learn the lessons, apply them, and hopefully you get a good game. And it's very interesting in this article. Oh God, here we go again.
Your motherboard's not the only thing that's failing.
Yeah, and is that I think this is for the focus of like success bred failure, right? The success of Dragon Inquisition sort of cemented a lot of the bad um, ideas and concepts that BioWare was doing. We can do a very big game and get away with it because it's successful. People are going to love it, right? Um, and I'm hoping that they get things in order, but I'm a cynical bastard, so
Yeah,
yeah, I
you
don't.
don't think so? I kind of don't think so. And I've heard like people bring up arguments like whether at this point, given how bad everything has been, if BioWare as a whole should just drop Anthem completely and just cut their losses, which
Mhm.
I don't foresee them doing, um, and just focus on making themselves better and making the next Dragon Age game the best game it could be without any suffering any casualties. And I think All Eyes, the Dragon Age game, assuming that EA is going to let them get that far,
Mm-hmm.
I think all eyes are going to be on them because regardless of how great Dragon Age 4 is going to be, if it is at the cost of all these of developers and all these people, Bioware is going to be dead to a lot of people
Yeah.
at that point, completely dead.
And the reason I think they can't do that is because EA wants a live service. They want live services, and as long as they can wring out that cash out of the game, they're gonna do it. So there you go. So it turns out that we did spend about an hour talking about this. So basically a 2 hour 2.25 or 2.5 hour podcast in two parts. So Chapamon, where can we find you on the interwebs?
You can find me at Chapomon pretty much everywhere. I am Chapomon_Aragon on Twitch and Twitter, and I am on YouTube under Chapomon.
And of course, you can find me here on the Lesson Learn channel. Lesson Learn 1 is important. And we're playing Yakuza Kiwami, the first game in the Yakuza series. Trying to rescue a very cute little girl that always gets into trouble and beating up a lot of thugs and ruffians in the streets of Tokyo. And of course, you can find the two parts of this podcast, the one that got interrupted and this full part, in our YouTube channel as well. So thank you already for coming. And as always, we'll see you when we see you. Bye bye, everybody.
Bye.